Knights Templar, the hidden war tactics that history never revealed. In the darkest ages of human history, when kingdoms rose and fell under the weight of steel, and the fate of entire empires depended on sharp minds and sharper blades, a force emerged that no chronicler could ignore: the Knights Templar. They were not merely mounted warriors, nor simple defenders of faith. They were the living embodiment of unbreakable discipline, strategic brilliance, and military tactics so advanced that even today they inspire awe, fear, and endless curiosity. Every step they took, every battle they fought, every formation they executed carried a purpose hidden beneath the surface, a logic invisible to the untrained eye. And in this video, you will be taken directly into that world, where war was not chaos but calculation, where each maneuver functioned as part of a larger design, where victory was never accidental but the result of a martial science centuries ahead of its time. As we journey through scorched landscapes, fortified strongholds, and wine-carved deserts, you will witness what many never realized. It was not their weapons that made the Templars nearly unstoppable. It was the way they thought. They understood their enemies long before the clash began. They read patterns, exploited weaknesses, crafted illusions, manipulated terrain, and wielded fear like a sculptor shaping destiny. To them, the battlefield was a strategic board, and each knight a perfectly positioned piece. No charge was impulsive. No retreat was weakness. No silence was hesitation. Everything was intention. Everything was strategy. In this script, you will step inside the mind of the Templar tactician. You will see how small units could overturn entire armies, how formations that seemed simple concealed brilliant tactical architecture, how maneuvers mistaken for miracles were, in truth, products of relentless preparation. Their power did not lie only in faith, but in analytical precision, in the art of transforming hostile landscapes into weapons, in the mastery of combining spiritual conviction with military perfection. Prepare to uncover what lies beneath the legends and myths, to understand why kings feared them, why enemies trembled, and why their presence alone could reshape the fate of a continent. This is the heart of everything, the hidden war tactics that made the Knights Templar nearly impossible to defeat. What you are about to witness is not merely history, it is strategic engineering that shaped centuries for centuries. The stories told about the Knights Templar have been wrapped in glory, mystery, and reverence. Yet beyond the legends that echo across generations lies a silent and undeniable truth. Their dominance on the battlefield was not built on faith alone, but on an extraordinary understanding of war as a living organism. For the Templars, every conflict was an equation, every advance a calculation, every moment of stillness a deliberate tactical setup. When they crossed barren plains, confronted colossal fortress walls, or rode through valleys engulfed in dust raised by enemy armies, they were not just fighting, they were interpreting the environment, predicting movements, and transforming threats into strategic advantages. What made the Templars truly feared wasn't the armor they wore, but the mind operating beneath it. While common medieval armies relied on numbers and impulsive charges, the Templars relied on observation, discipline, and preparation. They studied the terrain hours before conflict, analyzed enemy marching patterns, calculated the most efficient angle for a charge, timed every defensive transition precisely, and understood that a battle began long before the first sword was drawn. For them, the battlefield was a text that needed to be read with precision, and each encounter revealed more about their remarkable military intelligence. It was this rare ability to see the unseen, to identify danger before it manifested, to anticipate enemy collapse, to predict openings and turn them into victories, that separated survival from absolute domination. In this introduction, you will be guided through this very perspective. Before we explore the hidden tactics that made the Knights Templar nearly impossible to defeat, we must first understand the mentality behind their methods. A Templar was not merely a man on horseback. He was part of a larger mechanism, perfectly synchronized, designed to win through logic, discipline, faith, and a level of precision far beyond the standards of medieval warfare. They believed a disciplined mind was worth more than 1,000 blades, and because of this, their enemies often lost long before the battle even began. Throughout this video, each topic will reveal an essential piece of this sophisticated military architecture that history, for centuries, left unexplained. You will see why kings felt threatened by their presence, why adversaries often retreated without engaging, and why, even today, their strategies are studied in modern military academies searching to understand how a relatively small force could wield such immense power. Prepare yourself, You are about to step behind the curtain of the most feared strategic mind of the Middle Ages. Here, every detail matters, every maneuver has purpose, and every revelation will bring you one step closer to the central question of this video. How did the Knights Templar become so unbeatable? The first essential pillar of Templar military dominance was something few medieval armies ever mastered: the unbreakable formation. For the Knights Templar, a battle did not begin with the first clash of steel, but in the precise positioning of each warrior before a single step was taken. They understood that power did not lie in individual ferocity, but in collective precision. Because of this, they developed a compact, rigid, strategically engineered structure that allowed them to move as one entity, a military organism perfectly synchronized. While ordinary troops became scattered, driven by fear or impulse once combat erupted, the Templars remained firm, aligned, and impenetrable. Their formation did not break, even under overwhelming pressure, creating in their enemies the unsettling sensation of facing a living wall. This style of warfare demanded absolute discipline. No knight could act independently. Each had to trust completely the warrior beside him. That trust was not only spiritual, but tactical. Shields guarded the flanks, lances were angled in perfect alignment, and the front line moved with a harmony that defied medieval expectations. Contemporary chroniclers often describe the Templar formation as an iron line, incapable of being broken by enemy charges, volleys of arrows, or chaotic assaults. This was only possible because the Templars trained relentlessly, repeating the same maneuvers for months until each response became automatic. On the field, this created a force that reacted instantly and in perfect unity, leaving even veteran commanders baffled by the precision they faced. Another crucial advantage was adaptability. Unlike rigid armies that relied on a single method of attack, the Templars could alter the density of their formation depending on terrain. In open fields, they expanded to increase coverage in narrow corridors or mountain passes. They compressed into a tight, nearly impenetrable column. This flexibility ensured that, instead of being at the mercy of the environment, they controlled it. Their mastery over formation allowed them to transform any landscape into a tactical asset. Mountains, deserts, forests, or plains all served the Templar purpose, but the greatest strength of the unbreakable formation was psychological. For an enemy exhausted, poorly organized, or emotionally unstable, seeing a flawless line advancing without hesitation was terrifying. Many accounts describe soldiers retreating before any physical contact occurred, believing they were facing a force touched by the divine. When a troop does not scatter, does not fear, and does not hesitate, it conquers the battlefield before the swords even meet. And this is how the Knights Templar began forging their reputation as an undefeated force. Through a formation that didn't just win, it dominated. The second tactic that elevated the Knights Templar to the status of a nearly unbeatable force was the legendary demolishing charge, a military maneuver still regarded today as one of the most destructive impacts ever executed on a medieval battlefield. Unlike the impulsive, chaotic charges common among many armies of the time, the Templars perfected a precise, almost scientific method that transformed every advance into a calculated blow capable of annihilating enemy formations in seconds. For them, charging wasn't a matter of blind aggression, it was a matter of timing, distance, terrain, and momentum. Their supremacy did not come from rage, but from absolute control. The charge began with an unexpected calmness. The Templars advanced in a steady, disciplined march, aligned like a moving fortress. There was no rush, no chaotic roar, only the rhythmic sound of hoofs striking the earth and the silent pressure of dozens of armored bodies moving with purpose. That initial slow pace was not weakness, but deliberate strategy. It preserved formation integrity, prevented the horses from exhausting themselves too early, and conserved the explosive power needed for the decisive moment. Enemies often misread this controlled approach as caution, unaware of the storm about to be unleashed. And then, just a few meters before impact, everything changed. The Templars accelerated simultaneously, as if a single heartbeat commanded the entire formation. This perfect synchrony was the true secret of their devastating strike. When the lances dropped, the shields locked, and the final burst of speed erupted, the combined weight of horse, armor, and knight became an unstoppable kinetic force. Medieval accounts describe enemy soldiers being lifted off the ground, human walls ripped apart like fabric, and lances piercing through multiple opponents in a single thrust. But the brilliance of the Templar charge did not lie solely in the final acceleration. It lay in the calculation behind it. They knew exactly how many meters were needed to reach maximum impact without losing cohesion. They studied the terrain meticulously, positioning themselves so that mud, sand, or slopes would not undermine their effectiveness. They even understood the psychology of fear, watching a perfect line approach with calm. Deliberate determination shattered the morale of countless armies. Many troops fled before the first blow, unable to find courage in the face of such disciplined power. After the impact, the Templars did not scatter like typical cavalry units. Their formation reorganized within seconds, ready either to fortify defensively or to prepare a second charge. This ability to maintain coherence even after such violent contact made the demolishing charge not only deadly, but almost impossible to counter. The Templar charge was more than a technique. It was a signature, a symbol of absolute dominance on the battlefield. The third tactic that cemented the Knights Templar as an almost indestructible force was the legendary Iron Line, a defensive maneuver so formidable that many enemies hesitated the moment they saw it taking shape. While most medieval armies fell into complete disarray after the first clash, unable to reorganize shields, lances, and positions quickly enough, the Templars executed this transition as though following an invisible choreography. The moment their devastating charge completed its purpose, each knight instantly shifted into a defensive stance, locking shields, realigning their weapons, and closing formation gaps with astonishing speed. In mere seconds, what had been a rapidly advancing cavalry became an immovable, impenetrable wall capable of absorbing counterattacks with a strength that seemed impossible for such a small force. This rapid transformation was the result of training that went far beyond physical conditioning. It was mental, emotional, and spiritual. The Templars did not simply know where to stand. They understood why they stood there. Each knight recognized that his role was not individual, but part of a collective organism that only functioned when every component acted with near mathematical precision. As they formed the Iron Line, no movement was improvised. Every shield fitted into the next, every lance pointed at a strategic angle, every horse shifted to obstruct enemy advances and complicate attempts to breach the barrier. This flawless organization left opposing armies paralyzed, unsure whether to attack, retreat, or try to flank the formation. The effectiveness of the Iron Line was so overwhelming that several historical records describe it as unbreakable, not because the enemy lacked strength, but because they lacked the ability to penetrate such a disciplined structure. Here lay the brilliance of the Templar mind. They knew that after the charge, the enemy would be emotionally shaken, physically scattered, and tactically vulnerable. By raising their defensive wall, in that exact window of time, they turned the opponent's moment of weakness into their own fortification. While other armies attempted to exploit the chaos following impact, the Templars controlled that chaos with mastery. Furthermore, the Iron Line carried immense psychological power. For many warriors, seeing the enemy withstand their impact without losing formation was already unsettling, but seeing them instantly reorganize into an impenetrable defense shattered morale. And this collapse of enemy spirit made the tactic even more devastating. Once the will to fight was broken, defeat became inevitable. The Iron Line was more than a defensive strategy. It was a symbol of invincibility, a reminder that the Knights Templar did not fight with brute force alone, but with intelligence, discipline, and a profound understanding of battlefield psychology. The fourth tactic that elevated the Knights Templar to an unmatched level of military efficiency was the precise and strategic role of the elite mounted sergeants, a group often overlooked in popular narratives yet absolutely essential to the Templar war machine. If the frontline cavalry embodied the order's strength and discipline, the sergeants were its lateral mind, its peripheral vision, and its tactical arm capable of shifting the outcome of a battle. Within minutes, unlike the main cavalry, which operated as a tightly bound wall, the sergeants had both the freedom and the responsibility to act independently. As long as every movement aligned with the greater strategy, they were trained not only to fight, but to observe, analyze, and execute maneuvers that only highly experienced warriors could understand and perform in time. These sergeants created a kind of second layer of strategy on the battlefield. While the enemy focused all his energy on resisting the main Templar line, the sergeants moved along the flanks, identifying weaknesses in enemy formations, exploiting gaps, cutting escape routes, and striking vital positions at precisely the right moment. Their actions were silent, often invisible, and therefore devastating. Many armies believed they were fighting only the Templar front line, unaware that they were being observed, surrounded, and manipulated by specialists who knew exactly when and where to strike. More than physical strength, the elite unit mastered psychological warfare. Imagine an enemy struggling to withstand the main formation, thinking they had found a weak point, only to be blindsided by a sudden flanking assault that shattered their structure. That loss of mental control, that unexpected hit, completely broke the enemy's sense of order. It was common for entire troops to retreat or surrender once they realized the sergeants were on the battlefield, as their reputation was one of unstoppable speed, precision, and unpredictability. The integration between the Templar frontline and the mounted sergeants was so refined that many chroniclers described the order as a single organism with multiple arms, one striking the front, another flanking, another crushing counterattacks. This unified vision came from relentless training, months spent in exercises, where the sergeants learned to read battlefield dynamics and respond in seconds to sudden changes. They were not just strong, they were intelligent, analytical, and profoundly loyal to the collective purpose. It was this combination of strength, speed, precision, and strategic intelligence that transformed the mounted sergeants into one of the Templars' greatest hidden weapons. They were never merely support, they were the secret mechanism that amplified the Order's power, making their maneuvers impossible to predict and incredibly difficult to stop. The fifth tactic that made the Knights Templar nearly unbeatable was known as the controlled sacrifice strategy, a maneuver so daring and sophisticated that most enemies never realized they were being lured into a trap until it was far too late. At the heart of this technique were small units of Templar warriors, positioned in extremely high-risk areas of the battlefield, not to win the initial clash, but to manipulate the enemy's movement, redirecting their focus, breaking their formation, and guiding them straight into the jaws of the main Templar force. These men were the vanguard of strategic courage, fully aware that they stood on the most dangerous ground, yet equally aware that their role could determine the fate of the entire army. These advanced units would approach the enemy with deliberate calculation, often appearing vulnerable or seemingly isolated to opposing armies. This looked like the perfect opportunity to strike hard and eliminate what appeared to be a weak fragment of the Templar line. The illusion worked almost always, and this impulsive reaction was exactly what made the tactic so lethal. When the enemy rushed forward, believing they had found a weakness, they were actually charging straight into a carefully crafted corridor of destruction. Prepared by the Templars, the main lines, often hidden or strategically pulled back, waited until the enemy was fully stretched, unbalanced, and exposed, then closed the trap with surgical precision. The brilliance of this tactic lay in psychological manipulation. The Templars understood that the moment an army believes it has gained a sudden advantage is the moment it becomes most reckless. The enemy, convinced they had spotted a weak link, advanced with chaotic aggression, abandoning formation, discipline, and tactical awareness. For a highly trained force like the Templars, this was pure opportunity. The controlled sacrifice strategy created exactly the emotional imbalance the Templars were masters at exploiting. By the time the enemy reached their supposed advantage point, they were already defeated. They just didn't know it yet. These forward units were not suicidal. They were experts in extreme resistance. They knew how to hold the enemy long enough, how to protect themselves, and how to retreat at the precise moment to allow the larger plan to unfold. Their purpose was never to die, but to deceive, delay, and redirect. Many survived precisely because they mastered this dangerous art with exceptional finesse. For the enemy, however, it felt like madness, facing Templars who advanced little, retreated little, and responded with impossible precision created confusion, leaving attackers uncertain of the Order's true intentions until the realization came far too late. In the end, the controlled sacrifice strategy was not about losing men, it was about making the enemy lose their mind. And when an army loses its clarity, it loses the battle long before it understands why. The Templars knew this, and they wielded that truth as a weapon. The sixth tactic that sealed the Knights Templar's reputation as a force capable of rising from the ashes in the very heart of battle was the legendary Phantom Return, a maneuver so astonishing that many enemies believed they were witnessing divine intervention or some kind of supernatural battlefield trick. This technique relied on a deliberate, calculated feigned retreat, creating the illusion of weakness to lure the enemy into advancing recklessly. To the opposing army, this withdrawal appeared to be the beginning of victory. To the Templars, it was the opening act of a flawlessly orchestrated counterstrike. Once the enemy broke formation to pursue what they perceived as a fleeing foe, the Templars would pivot with incredible speed, reform their lines, and launch a devastating return assault against an opponent now completely exposed. The brilliance of this maneuver lay in the Templars' mastery of psychological warfare. They understood that no enemy could resist the temptation of pressing forward, When they believed a feared opponent was retreating, the sight of the mighty Templar cavalry seemingly losing ground ignited arrogance, haste, and disorder, emotions fatal on any battlefield. By provoking this reaction, the Templars manipulated the enemy into abandoning discipline, extending their ranks, and stepping directly into the jaws of destruction. When the sudden reversal occurred, the psychological shock of the counterattack was as devastating as the physical force behind it. Executing the phantom return required extreme discipline. Retreating without panic was nearly impossible for most medieval armies. Yet the Templars practiced this skill relentlessly. Every knight knew the exact distance to fall back, the marker on the terrain to reach, the precise signal to await, and the exact position to retake once the formation was reassembled. This level of precision turned the maneuver into a deadly choreography, in which each movement served a strategic purpose. When the Templars turned and charged back, they did so not as scattered individuals, but as a fully restored, unified force. Their reformation was so fast that many chroniclers described it as warriors, rising from the shadows. The enemy, stretched thin and disorganized by their own pursuit, suddenly faced a cohesive Templar formation sweeping forward with renewed fury. At that moment, the balance of battle shifted violently. Enemy lines broke, morale collapsed, and within seconds they found themselves surrounded, crushed, or fleeing in desperation. The phantom return was more than a tactic. It was a declaration of strategic genius. It proved that Templar strength lay not only in their physical might, but in their ability to manipulate the enemy's perception, emotions, and decisions. An army that can feign weakness, fabricate false confidence, and strike at the precise moment of enemy disorder does more than win battles. It forges legends. As we reach the end of this journey through the battlefield genius of the Knights Templar, one truth becomes unmistakably clear. The greatness of this order transcends centuries, borders, and the limitations of time. Every tactic you have witnessed, the unbreakable formation, the demolishing charge, the iron line, the elite sergeants, the controlled sacrifice, and the phantom return, represents far more than military techniques. They are manifestations of discipline in its purest form, strategic intelligence at its highest level, and courage untainted by hesitation. And it is precisely this combination that forged a legacy, powerful enough to survive long after the last Templar fortress had fallen. For the true strength of the Knights Templar was never in the blades they carried, but in the way they thought war, mastered chaos, and turned adversity into opportunity. This legacy crossed centuries in silence, weaving itself into military academies, strategic doctrines, studies of battlefield psychology, and historical records that still struggle to explain how such a relatively small order managed to hold its ground against entire kingdoms. The answer, though profound, is simple. The Templars understood something long before most armies would, that the mind wins. Long before the body fights, they knew that discipline defeats impulse, calculation conquers brutality, and intelligence triumphs over numbers. In every battlefield, two wars were being fought, the physical and the psychological, and the Templars mastered both with precision. That is why their legacy remains alive today, echoing through history with the same intensity it had when their banners cut through deserts and shadows during the height of the Middle Ages. More than warriors, they became a symbol of strategy, resilience, and purpose. A Templar knight did not enter combat as an isolated man. He carried with him centuries of tradition, responsibility, and a profound understanding that victory was never an accident, but a construction. They believed every formation, every sacrifice, every maneuver, and every step was a brick in a structure far greater than themselves. That structure survived them and continues to inspire the world today. The fascination around the Knights Templar endures not because they were flawless soldiers, but because they left behind a blueprint of mindset, discipline, and intelligence that still resonates with leaders, thinkers, strategists, historians, and dreamers. This is the immortal legacy of the Knights Templar, a force that does not fade when the battle ends, but continues to echo as a reminder that true invincibility is born at the intersection of mind, strategy, and courage. A reminder that the greatest victories are not claimed only with steel and fire, but with clarity, discipline, and the will to shape destiny. If this narrative has opened your eyes to the hidden side of the Templar Order, then you already understand the power of keeping alive the stories that shape the world, stories that official history often left buried in the shadows. And so, I invite you to remain at our side in this journey through the forgotten, the mysterious, and the extraordinary, like this video, because doing so tells the algorithm that this content deserves to reach others passionate about medieval history and untold secrets. Subscribe to the channel, because we are just beginning to explore the vast universe of ancient warfare, lost orders, forbidden manuscripts, vanished empires, and the strategies that rewrote continents. Activate the notification bell so you never miss any of the revelations we are preparing. Deep narratives, forbidden truths, hidden tactics, ancient codes, and analyses that go far beyond what the textbooks reveal. And, of course, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which of the 6 Templar tactics impressed you the most, or what historical theme you want to see explored in the next episodes. Your participation doesn't just strengthen this community, it shapes the future of this entire series. And if you wish to take an even greater step into this world, you can support our work by acquiring our digital book on the hidden power of the Knights Templar, filled with exclusive analyses, historical insights, battlefield psychology, and deep interpretations that simply cannot be fully shared here on YouTube. It's a way to help this channel grow while diving even deeper into this captivating universe. Stay prepared, because from this point on, every episode will bring the same depth, intensity, and cinematic storytelling you experienced here. History is alive, and together we will continue to uncover its most carefully guarded secrets.